Yes. What's good, everybody? Welcome back to Chat Sports TV. I'm your host, Nick Dais, at The Lamb Show on all social media outlets, here on the New York Giants Report. And yes, it should be no surprise, after another crap season by Big Blue, it is very possible that Pat Shurmur is on the ultra mega hot seat, not just the hot seat. We're going to run through some of the potential candidates to be the next head coach for the New York Giants. But before we do, make sure you guys have subscribed to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/chatsportstv. Let's talk about good old Pat Shurmur, eh? As we look at the player graphic, very likely to be fired at season's end, 17-45 in his career as a head coach. We remember his tenure with the Cleveland Browns. That was a disaster. He rose to prominence once again as the offensive coordinator for Case Keenum and that Minnesota Miracle team just a couple of years ago that went all the way to the NFC title game against division opponents and division foes, the Philadelphia Eagles. He is a great offensive coordinator, and I've always said this about many guys across all sports. It's not always bad to be Robin to someone's Batman. Pat Shurmur is not a guy who is capable of being a Batman in a situation. He's more of a Robin figure, a guy who could be a tremendous offensive asset for an organization. 5-11 in 2018 were the New York Giants, 1-8 in one-score games, and currently they are 2-11 going into Week 15, and they are on a 9-game losing streak. And Pat Shurmur just doesn't have the juice to be a head coach. All of his decisions are questionable. The best thing that he was able to do this year was to have the cojones to pull the plug on one Eli Manning, who, funny enough, is going to be the starter for the Giants, probably to close out the year with Daniel Jones being in a walking boot. So, my question to all of you guys watching this video, should the Giants fire Pat Shurmur after 2 seasons? This would be the second coach to be fired since they let go of Tom Coughlin. Remember, Tom Coughlin was let go or fired, depending on how you want to coin it. You know, a lot of people think Tom Coughlin stepped down to avoid the title fired over his nameplate. And then we had Ben McAdoo, and then we had Pat Shurmur. So I think the Giants are going to move on, and I need to tell you guys about what the next head coach is going to inherit when you're looking at this list here of the things for the New York Giants. The next coach, he's inheriting a very crappy organization. Most losses in the NFL since 2017. And if you remember, folks, the Cleveland Browns in 2017 went 0-16. Yes, the Cleveland Browns went winless and still have won more games since 2017 than the New York Giants have. 6 of the last 7 seasons for the G-Men have been losing ones. A below average roster when you look across the board. A lot of cap space, but a GM in David Gettleman who should be on the hot seat as well, with a lot of questionable decisions. I am not for that Leonard Williams trade on Monday Night Football against the Eagles. Leonard Williams said, and I quote, "I think I should be paid like the Aaron Donalds of the world." If that's the case, there's going to need to be a new host on here talking about the New York Giants for Chat Sports, because I am not going to be able to survive this offseason if he gets paid as much as Aaron Donald gets paid. This GM has gutted the Giants for most of its best players if you look over time the last couple of years, and he's been unable to find people to replace these guys. The best thing going for the guy that's going to step into this situation for the New York Giants is they're all but guaranteed to have a top 5 pick in a draft class that is very highly touted, as well as probably having the heir apparent, a franchise quarterback, and Daniel Jones. So weigh in the comments below. Not only should the Giants be looking for a head coach, but should the Giants be looking for a new GM as well? And now we're going to get into the head coaches. These are the candidates that I'm going with, that I think are the top 5 coaching candidates. And this is by preference and by fit. And I'm going to go from the least preferred at number 5 to my most preferred at number 1. And I know you guys are going to probably think I'm crazy, but I'm going to go with good old Nick Saban down in Alabama. Come on up from Tuscaloosa, baby. Nick Saban, now hear me out, guys. What does he need to prove in college? He's won so many national championships year in, year out. Alabama loses 1 or 2 games at most. this is the first year they're not going to be in the college football playoff, is Nick Saban and the Crimson Tide since the college football playoff format was slated. Give him part ownership of the organization, right? We've seen it in the past how Coach Calipari with the Kentucky Wildcats in college basketball said if he's going to go to the NBA, he wants a little bit of ownership. Why not? Why not throw a little 1% at Nick Saban for the New York Giants? Look, you're bringing in billions of dollars as a league, and the Giants are one of the more valuable franchises, despite how crappy the team has been and the product has been for the New York Giants. He's well respected. This is a good bonus for Nick Saban and a good cosign. The GOAT, Bill Belichick. Him and Nick Saban just had a special on HBO, which I thought was fantastic. If you guys haven't checked it out, it goes to show you just how sick, twisted, and just brain children these guys are to the game of football. He's an alpha who has failed in the NFL before, stepped away from the Miami Dolphins, had a 2-2 record against Bill Belichick and the Patriots, and he stepped away because the NFL just wasn't for him. And as an alpha dog like he is, I could see him wanting to prove himself with the big dogs in professional football. And I think it would also bring excitement to the fan base. The Giants need some juice, right? They had Odell Beckham. He made that one-handed catch. And then for about 3-4 years, the entire Giants offense was just slant to OBJ. Hopefully he takes his 70 yards. People have been soured by the defense being so bad year in, year out. Coaching changes, GM being inept, and just a roster that's been pretty lackluster with the exception of Odell when he was here and Saquon Barkley. So what's more likely to happen, guys? I have a question for you guys. Go to the comments and let me know. Nick Saban is the head coach for the Giants, or Eli Manning is the starter for the Giants in 2020? I want you guys to type Nick for Nick Saban and type Eli for Eli Manning. The next coach who is probably the crown jewel of college football when you're looking at the next guy up, like Chip Kelly used to be back in the day, like Kingsbury was just a couple of years ago, Lincoln Riley. Lincoln Riley is being thrown out a lot as of late. He has turned many quarterbacks into top prospects, the top prospect, right? His quarterback development is world class. Back-to-back #1 picks in Kyler Murray and Baker Mayfield. Guys who were not slated to be first-round picks ended up becoming the #1 pick in the NFL draft in back-to-back drafts. He took Jalen Hurts, who was not an NFL quarterback prospect so much, where now he's being talked about as a 2nd to 3rd round pick potentially because of the numbers that he's putting up. He is the new hot young offensive mind in college football. Every year he's in this discussion, and I think at the moment right now there hasn't been a head coach in college football sought out to be an NFL head coach as much as Lincoln Riley is since the days going all the way back to Oregon when they used to have Chip Kelly. It's been that long, and the Giants have, not for nothing, a lot of good offensive weapons that he could cook up some wild recipes with, right? Evan Ingram, a premier tight end. Golden Tate, Sterling Shepard, Saquon Barkley, Daniel Jones, a mobile quarterback. Darius Slayton, who leads the NFL amongst rookies in touchdowns this year and just had that monster blow-up game on Monday Night Football for the whole world to see. Is Lincoln Riley the most sought-out college head coach ever? Cowboys are linked to him. The Browns are linked to him because of his ties with Baker Mayfield there. Oh, the Giants might be in the mix. So many teams want to get their hands on Lincoln Riley because he's the next guy up. The third coach that I'm looking at, and not as juicy and as exciting, but he's a guy that has proven himself, and it's Mike McCarthy for me. Experienced head coach. I think he's underrated because he had Aaron Rodgers all these years, and people would always say it was Aaron Rodgers, but let's not forget there were many times when Aaron Rodgers was hurt that he had Matt Flynn in there, and Matt Flynn was able to keep the ship afloat until Aaron Rodgers came back. One of the highest win percentages of any head coach from the 2000s and on. He's one of the more well-respected head coaches amongst his peers, and developing a young QB, for me, I think it's very important. You get an offensive mind with a young quarterback to development. And I think Mike McCarthy is a guy that you should definitely have in the discussion if you want to bring in, if you're a team like the New York Giants. Another guy who has been a big prospect in coaching and has failed once before, but I'm going to cut him some slack, that is Josh McDaniels. He won less than 40% of his games as a head coach in 2 seasons with the Denver Broncos, but You know, I understand Tebow had a very cult-like following, and a lot of people loved Tim Tebow, but this guy is playing minor league baseball now for a reason, right? They spent the first-round draft pick on him. He really won games in Denver with Matt Prater hitting 60-yard field goals pretty much every week and a very dominant defense. Pulled a fast one on the Colts, so I don't know if I would exactly trust him. Remember a couple of years ago, he signed to be the head coach for the Colts, and then a couple of days later kind of bailed on them and went back to New England. So you need to trust him more than anything for more than about like 30 minutes before you sign him. Patriots Director of Player Personnel, I found this very interesting while I was doing some research for this. Nick Caserio is rumored to be a top candidate for GM jobs. So maybe if you're the Giants, you're like, hey, Nick, hey, Josh, come on over here, package deal. You guys have ties from New England. New England is one of the best franchises of all time. I mean, what they've been doing for 20 plus years now. You bring both of those guys in. Gettleman, good luck on your future endeavors. Pat Shurmur, good night, have a good one. And you just start with that. An offensive mastermind in Josh McDaniels, who's been able to adapt his system to the strength of the Patriots and to one Tom Brady. And I think it's very important, again, a young QB to have an offensive mind like these guys. And my number one, I think it's the most logical move. I think it's the best move. I think he is the best candidate available right now. And I'm a big fan of his resume, Ron Rivera. I think Ron Rivera, most logical, like I said, 3 straight division titles with the Carolina Panthers, which was in a division where we saw the Saints be one of the more premier offenses in football, a very hard place to play in the Superdome. You have a Hall of Fame quarterback, a Hall of Fame head coach over there. You have a guy in Matt Ryan and the Falcons who they went to their fair share of NFC title games. They went to a Super Bowl. That's also a tough place to play sometimes when the Falcons are good. And has dealt with multiple personalities, which I think is interesting. He used to have Josh Norman on the team. Cam Newton, we know about him. And when he got let go, a lot of the Panther players really took to social media and they were very outspoken about how important Ron Rivera was to their success and their development. And I think most importantly, he's a guy who's coaching big games, right? Playoff games. We mentioned 3 straight division titles. He's won big games on the road. He went to a Super Bowl where that game was competitive until the last couple of drives of that game against the Denver Broncos. And if Gettleman is going to stay there, you do have the ties to David Gettleman with Ron Rivera. Remember, they helped build that team in Carolina that ended up going to the Super Bowl in 2015. So, last but not least, let me know, guys, in the comments below. I'm going to try and be in the comments on this one. Who do you guys think should be and will be the next head coach for the New York Giants? Because we need to talk to these football gods, and they need to strike us with a blessing, because it's been really, really hard being a New York Giant fan the last couple of seasons. I'm Nick Dais at The Lamb Show, and I will catch you guys next time here on Chat Sports.